10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 80. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. We are on episode 80. I cannot believe it. But thank you so much for supporting me throughout all these shows and keep tuning in every week. It is so awesome to bring you guys lessons, and I'm super excited that we're crossing the 80 mark, and next will be 100. So welcome back to another episode. I figured this week we could take a break from our bebop stuff and talk about something a little bit different, even though this kind of does relate to the bebop style of playing. We're going to give our brains a little bit of a break from the stuff we've been talking about for the past month and give you a chance to work on it before we get any deeper into that stuff. So before we get started, if you are listening to this podcast, that is because of the generous donations of people like you. You guys really help us to keep the lights on over here and really keep bringing you outstanding content every single week, week in and week out. So if you haven't already, I encourage you to go over to patreon.com/10minutejazzlesson and kick us a couple of bucks every month just to keep things going here. And if we get enough people to do this, it really makes a huge difference. And like I said, just allows us to keep going. These podcasts take a tremendous amount of time to produce every single week, and we could use your help in the form of a $3 donation every month. You also get all the PDFs to every episode, and I've been uploading a bunch of extras to that Patreon site. So thank you so much to all the folks that have donated already. And if you haven't done so, please head over to patreon.com and check us out and kick us a few bucks. Thanks a lot. We appreciate it. All right, let's jump into today's episode. So today what we're going to talk about is coming up with a template that you can use to build lines off of. So this is breaking things down to a basic concept and then building on that concept. So we talk a lot about, learning vocabulary from the masters, and that's obviously one of the best things to do. I highly, highly recommend it. But at some point in our jazz playing careers and lives, we've got to kind of go past the copy phase of things and start coming up with some original stuff to sound like ourselves. And this is really important. I was just listening to a Chris Potter masterclass on YouTube, and he was talking about this a lot. He said that some of the stuff that he comes up with that he feels like is his best playing is taking a simple concept and seeing how far he can go with it. And that's kind of what we're going to do in today's podcast. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a simple template, which is going to be some really nice voice leading over a 2-5-1 progression. And we're going to kind of flip that on its head a little bit and come up with a couple of different ways. I'm basically just trying to get you started. So you can use my template or you can come up with something else on your own. But really you want to take this as far as it can go. What I'm doing is I'm giving you the template, and then I'm going to give you 2 lines that I came up with off of that template. But if I were doing this in real life, which I am in my own practice time, I'd probably come up with, 10, 15, 20 lines off of that same template. So I'm really just trying to stretch my ability to use one concept and turn it into, 15 or 20 different lines, so that when I'm improvising, I can honestly just get that one concept into my head, and then I have all these different options, similar to like a theme and variations kind of thing. So the template that we've come up with is a pretty simple one. We're going to use voice leading across the 2-5-1 progression, really nice voice leading, and we're going to try to come up with some stuff off of that. So the voice leading goes like this. Over the minor chord, we're going to use major 7 to flat 7. And then when we get to the dominant chord, the 5 chord, we're going to use 3. Then we're going to use sharp 9 to flat 9. And then we're going to resolve to the 1 chord by playing the 5th. So this is really, really nice voice leading. It's something that everybody should know is how to complete this voice leading, and then we're going to come up with our interesting stuff over that. So before we get into the more complicated lines off of the template, I want to just play the template for you. So here is major 7 to flat 7 to 3 to sharp 9, flat 9 to 5. All right, so I know what you're thinking. I can actually read your mind from all the way in my studio here. You're thinking that that major 7 sounds horrible. And it kind of does when you play it like that, although the more you play it, the more you get used to it. But that is a very jarring note, especially when we're just playing half notes and quarter notes and stuff like that. So don't worry, once we frame that in the correct way, it's going to sound a heck of a lot more inside the changes, because we're not going to be hanging out on it for an entire 2 beats. That's really what makes it sound so jarring. And it's the first note that we're playing over the minor chord. So that's why it sounds so funky. And you're going to see on the second line here that it's going to sound a lot better. Because really what we're trying to create is the half step effect between the major 7, the flat 7, and then to the 3. Those are all half steps, right? So that's really what the second line that we're about to look at is going to do in a much better way than what I just played. So just kind of get over the fact that that major 7 is so dissonant right now, and then you'll see how it works with the other line. So now what I'm going to do is really fill in a bunch of other notes around those notes that I already played, but I'm still using those notes that I played as a template for the entire line. So the underlying voice leading is going to be what I just played. Now what you'll notice if you're looking at your PDF is that I've put the voice leading notes, the tones that I just used in the last exercise, in red. So you can see where they fall, and you can see that I am in fact using all of those notes in the line that I'm about to play. So now what I've done is I've filled in a bunch of eighth notes around those voice leading principles that we talked about, the template that we made, and I've come up with a completely different line. This is going to sound much more like something that you would actually play over a tune. See if you can use your ears and figure out where I placed those particular notes in the template. And again, if you have the PDF, you'll see that they are in red. So here is line number 2 on your exercise sheet. So I'm willing to bet that you can deal with that major 7 over the minor chord now, right? Because I framed it in a way that it actually works. And that's going to be your job, is to take the template and come up with a bunch of different ways that it works. All right, so here is the second line. Now what I've done is just use the exact same template, but in a completely different way. I was placing the template notes towards the end of a 4/8 note phrase. Now I'm going to be placing them at the beginning and doing something completely different. And this is really where your creativity starts to come in. This is where you really start to work on the concepts that are going to take your playing to the next level. So here is the next line on the exercise sheet, and again I have put the template notes in red so that you can easily pick them out and kind of use what I've written as a guide to start writing your own. So here's exercise number 3. So that one's very different. Even though I'm using the same template for it, it's a very, very different line that has a very different sound to it, even though the underlying stuff is exactly the same. So I don't want to mislead you guys. This stuff is really hard. You're going to have to spend a lot of time coming up with ways to use this template that work, that sound original. But by stretching ourselves and really getting ourselves into the more difficult part of playing, which is true creativity, you can really take your playing a long way. But don't think that this is something where you're just going to sit down and bang out, 20 lines without really having to think about it. Even just to come up with these 2 lines that I came up with, I don't know, I spent about 20 minutes at the piano trying stuff, realizing that it didn't work, trying to rewrite part of the line, getting frustrated, and then ultimately coming up with something that I actually liked. But it takes a while, so don't get frustrated. Realize that this is part of the growing process, and really make sure that you're spending the time necessary to get the full benefit out of this. And by the time you get to that like 15th, 16th line, you're really going to be stretching your ability to come up with something original, because you're going to use all the easy to figure out stuff on the first 5 lines, and then after that you're really going to have to start stretching your ears and stretching your concept of what you thought was possible over the 251 with this template, and you're really going to make some progress. At least I hope you will, and I'm pretty sure you will. In the past, whenever I've had students do this, they've really gotten a lot out of it and started to develop a lot more flexibility when they're actually improvising in the moment. All right. So I hope this stuff helps you. Shoot me any questions you might have. Also, if you want to get deeper into this stuff, I do Skype lessons and I only have room for 5 more students. And then my schedule is completely full. So if you're somebody that wants to get one of those last 5 spots, reach out to me, 10minutejazzlesson@gmail.com, and we can set something up. If you want to get a little bit deeper into these concepts that I present on the podcast, Skype lessons are a perfect way to do that. All right, well, I hope you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Monday with another Motivation Monday podcast. Have a great weekend, everybody. Talk to you soon.